is a D6 generation pip. Yeah, one of those dots on the side of a six-sided die. Yeah, a pip. You know, a short pip. Little something. Yeah, about anything gaming related. Sometimes featuring Craig, sometimes featuring Russ. We'll see what's coming up today. Welcome to another pip. Right,
pip, 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 pip.
This is why we have to get better theme music.
Pip, pip, pip.
No, see, no. Anyway,
it
is time now for our second September 2019
That's
pip.
Right. Sneaking it in under the wire,
It
Russ.
is under the wire.
Under the wire.
It is fall. The leaves are starting to turn.
Yeah, the play is finally settled out.
The leaf peepers are streaming into our great state of
They are indeed giant busloads of them, in fact.
I am already starting to rake my lawn. The leaves are falling.
I'm watering my lawn twice a day because they overseed it in the fall.
Well, that's what you're supposed to do.
Exactly.
That's good. You got to have bushy grass in this spring.
I'm hoping.
The kind you go barefoot through and let the little grass blades go between the toes. You barely notice the ticks.
That'd be good.
Excellent.
Till later. When you get the bullseye marks on there and you realize that you've got, well, anyway.
Yes.
Moving on.
Right, we just destroyed spring, but fall, much better season. Also, you know what we haven't done in a while, Craig?
What haven't we done in a while?
We have not done an achievements in gaming in a while.
Achievements in gaming.
That's right. A kind of a hodgepodge, Kessel sort of chat about what general stuff we've been doing.
Smorgasbord,
these
if
topics
you will.
don't warrant an entire episode, but together,
That's sort of what it's
put them all together,
morphed into, right?
Yeah, kind of what's happening.
Yeah, right.
So, it's been about maybe a month or two, but what have we been playing lately?
Well,
what's
that's
been,
a good question.
What's been in the regular rotation for you, sir?
The regular rotation for me lately has been, primarily Joan of Arc, right?
Mm-hmm.
Time of Legends.
You just got more Joan of Arc.
Oh my God!
You got a big busload.
What I'm surprised you didn't take a picture of that table when you were over in the pub the other night, because
I should have.
That had all the stuff.
Because there were piles of boxes on there.
Just piles of. I mean, it's ridiculous. And yet
I thought I had a lot.
No, you do. You have
because
nothing.
I
have nothing.
I got the original, but not the full Kickstarter, but not the base. I got somewhere in the middle, the middling amount. The same human
you got
volume.
The base. That was the base.
Was it?
Yeah, that's
Three
the base.
giant boxes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And
that's the base.
And then on through eBay or other means,
then you picked up
got
the
a dragon and the demon.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you got essentially wave 1, which is what I got, and you got wave 2.
I went all in on everything except the RPG.
Which means you have Siege now.
I have Siege.
Which has walls of castles. You got things that have little plastic flags that replace the cubes just to make it just that much cooler.
Just that much
you got extra
blingier.
Dice.
Yep, I got double the dice.
More demons and undead. What's it called?
That's the Apocalypse expansion.
Right.
So that comes with all kinds of demons and ghosts and
isn't there a village too? Like city or
there's
something?
A village, which comes with a beautiful water sawmill.
Yeah, right. So the models are awesome.
And missions. Every one of these came with additional
missions. And each mission, I think as we mentioned in the past, these aren't just like slight variations on like deployment and forces composition. They are completely and total like 2 to 3 page mini games.
Yeah.
Right? That you have to read and digest. And what's the best part is when you play one, I know some people complain about this, but I think it's awesome. When you play one, they're so unique and different, you want to immediately play it again.
Right.
Because it's not like, oh, it was really hard to understand. It's like, oh, what a cool scenario. Yeah. I lost.
Well, they're so, and they're so, I wouldn't say complicated, but they're so elaborate.
Yes.
That
detail.
There are some people who are like, oh, this wasn't clear. And we've never had that. I mean, there may be one or two things where you're like, I don't know exactly what this means, but it's not something that we've ever had stop the game.
Right.
And I love it. And every time we play, I've loved that game, and I love it more every time. And the big game that we just played, we had a goal, right? We wanted to play with all painted models, and Russ did a whole bunch of bad guys, and so I said, let's do an apocalypse mission, and you paint a bunch of humans. So we don't use any of his bad guys.
And the thing is, the bad guys are very powerful.
Yeah.
So to have a fair scenario, there's always many more good guys.
Right.
So it was actually good because I was then incentivized to really crank out
a pretty big
and I tweeted it. It was something like
if you count up all the individual models, it was some like 64 individual models, most of them on basis of 3, but basically it was a lot of dudes.
Yeah. Yeah.
A couple supernatural guys. I had an angel in there. I had a couple of like...
you had almost every civilian
which
made
is great
for the
too,
game.
because most scenarios have the civilians in it as like either objectives or neutral things that can affect the game.
Yeah.
And so this forced me to paint like all but like 3 of the civilians.
Yeah.
A good chunk of the core of most human forces. Like, there's like 10 stands of archers. I got 4 of them done.
Yeah.
I got a bunch of pikemen done. So I feel like I now have a good core force that if we were to play a different scenario, it would only be like add 4 more stands in as opposed to, which I love. So that now I've got a good momentum going.
Right. And that's how I feel about when I did the 4 horsemen, and the 4 horsemen models are huge. They're like 28
ridiculous.
millimeter. They're giant.
They're
they
ridiculous.
take up like a whole hex by themselves.
And they're over the top, not only in size, which is also clever because you could use them in a nice game of 40K or fantasy as just crazy different models, which is kind of what they did with the dragon too.
Right.
But they are also just over the top in terms of their sculpts.
Oh, they're crazy.
Like one of the guys is riding the horse, I kid you not, upside down.
Yeah, death.
With the feet of the horse in the air, almost like they're
the horse is floating.
Handlebars. They're not handlebars, but they could be handlebars.
Well, I don't know about handlebars. And it's floating, and that model can fly, which of course it could because the horse is upside down.
And just to make it a little more scary, because the horse is upside down, they put a mouth with teeth in its neck.
Yes.
Just because it would be the right height to get
feed it.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you can't, just expect it to float around on its
So
own.
it was a cool scenario because each of the horsemen, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, which Craig was playing, were spawning in different 4 corners.
And they each have a retinue.
They each have a retinue. So what's basically happening is death's coming in from one side of the map over and over again. As I kill them, they just keep coming. So it's basically like, it's literally the apocalypse.
It is.
It's definitely a scenario where like the good guys...
The mouths of hell have opened.
We're just trying to not get annihilated by turn 7, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
So Craig's got to kill basically 20 points of my dudes, which is basically 20 stands of guys.
Yeah.
Which turned out, initially I was like, this is hopeless. But then about, 3 turns in, I realized, actually, Craig is killing me like crazy. But to get all my dudes, you didn't need all of them, but you need most of them. Most of them, I could start getting crafty.
I think you only had 4 or 5 left.
Right.
I mean,
and you still only won.
And
it was the last round.
It was literally my last throw of the dice.
Mm-hmm.
If I hadn't won there, then I think I had a 50-50 shot in the infirmary because you had like a couple guys in there that needed to either get out, and if they had stayed in, they would have died.
So basically, as long as at the end of 7 turns, which is a long game, Craig has to get at some point. Craig gets to 20 victory points, which basically means kill 20 of my dudes.
Yeah.
He wins. But if he doesn't, I win.
Yep.
So I'm just trying to survive. I've got a couple cool rules. Like if I can make it to the church, I'm safe pretty much in there.
Yep.
There's no way for the forces of darkness to get in there. So theoretically, I just run everybody in the church and I'm fine. No, because it's a long walk to the church. And Craig was smart enough to basically assail the church and cut it off from reinforcements.
Yeah.
And so, but then the guys in the church can start praying on my side and start summoning angels.
Well, in retrospect, what you will do next time we play this and flip it, I know, is the first horseman to spawn, whoever it may be, will be spawning right next to the church and moving on to the church so that I can't get anybody in there.
Right. So you want to cut the church off.
Yeah.
But initially, there are a substantial number of forces of good.
Yeah.
So there's a turn or two where the forces of good really throw some serious attack dice and can whittle the bad guys down, but they just keep coming.
Right.
So what you're really trying to do is buy yourself some time.
Unless you're killed by an angel. If you're killed by an angel, there's no coming back. You die the true death.
Yes. You must be an angel.
And that's the kind of stuff that you get in all these different missions, these cool, fluffy little aspects. So we've been playing a lot of that.
Yeah, and now there's another Kickstarter coming.
Yes.
1.5 rules.
Starting tomorrow, I think. Yeah,
so Craig and I are eyeing that. I think what we're going to do here is, this is our plan.
Yeah.
To be rational. Since Craig got all the stuff in the first Kickstarter, and I only got like half.
Right.
In this, Craig is going to just get some updated rules.
Craig's going to do his best to do
That's what he says. Meanwhile, I am going to pretty much go all in on the new one, so I have all of this. So between the two of us, we have everything.
We'll have everything.
We both have a rational amount, but I think there's even money that Craig breaks down and just gets it all.
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, that's possible. Well, the cool thing is, like we've said, we love this game as is.
We do.
We have enjoyed this game as is.
It needs no change.
We have not run into anything that we thought broke the game.
Nope.
Even the things that other people are complaining about are it's like complaining about a rule in the NFL.
Right.
Well, you can complain about it, but that's the way it is, and you
Right.
play with it and you play
to
around
the
it.
rules and you're fine. Yeah.
And we've really enjoyed it.
Sure.
But the company is reacting to
Which is good. You're listening to their fans.
Yeah, it's that rules by committee again, though.
Yeah, that is dangerous.
I feel like that's
here's
dangerous.
The thing.
But
The reason to get the Kickstarter isn't really for rules 1.5.
No.
I don't think it needs it.
No.
It's for all the other cool stuff.
well, like all the scenarios.
Right. So if you don't like 1.5, you can stick with 1.0, I assume.
Right.
Unless the new scenarios require 1.5.
Well, the new stuff is probably going to have the new cards and everything. But what they've done is, and I think this is an awesome thing for a company to do, you don't have to go in and get anything. You can play with what you've got if you're happy. If you want the upgraded rules and cards, and there's going to be an upgraded rule book that has all the new scenarios and all the old scenarios all gathered together in one place. If you were in the old Kickstarter and you want all that new stuff, you get it for free as long as you pledge at least $20 for new material in the new Kickstarter.
That's cool.
And that's shipping free as well.
So it's just optional stuff.
It's optional stuff, but it addresses all of these different things, and it comes with new cards and things like that.
I'm curious what they're doing for the new stuff, but I really just want the.
I'll tell you one thing that I would like to see is I would like to see the interacting with the civilians streamlined.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there.
In the basic rules that we play with, I don't know about you when you play with your daughters, but when I'm playing, I'm ignoring the civilians.
We do interrogate them once in a while, but it is like a little mini role-playing game.
Yeah, it's kind of, and then you've got to find the right card and ask the right questions.
And I we do kind of ignore them a lot. So it'd be nice to streamline that. But honestly,
but it's not a must.
Not every scenario has the civilians. It's optional. You don't have to do it. It's just like they've layered. It does have a little bit of that, it'd be cool. What if you could do this? And they just added a bunch of stuff.
Right.
So you could pull it back, but it doesn't hurt the game that it's there, honestly.
Oh, absolutely not. No. So I'm really enjoying that.
Me too.
Played a bit more of British versus Pirates.
Yes, we did.
We talked about that in the last
We
pip.
did. I'm having a blast painting that.
I am now painting
and I should
two
say,
fleets.
Contrast paint up.
Yes.
So, we did a lot of British versus Pirates contrast painting. Yep. You have developed a technique now.
I have.
In which
I love it.
You prefer to prime black.
Yep.
Describe your dry brushing process, Craig, because it's not the same as most people. You have a heavier dry brush hand.
It's a very, very heavy dry brush hand because I'm looking to color almost the entire model with the prime color, with the whether it's gray seer or Wraithbone. They're both the contrast
it's like
prime
an off-white.
colors.
It's an off-white light gray
exactly.
situation.
It's either a warm or a cool off-white color.
And your goal here is you don't like the fact that with the contrast paints, if you miss a spot or the paint doesn't flow well, the gaps are white.
Exactly.
Which are very bright and distracting and not realistic.
Yeah.
Whereas with the black undercoat, if you miss a spot, it's dark and your eyes don't notice it.
Exactly.
So your approach, model's black, you now dry brush it very light, a lighter color.
Yeah.
Now the contrast paints still stick. You still get a bright result because you're dry brushed on white, but the gaps and dark spots are really hyper dark.
Exactly.
And you don't have to worry about the gaps.
Yep, exactly. It adds an extra layer of shading in as well because you've dry brushing, so the ridges are going to be brighter and the recesses are going to be darker, even if they are colored with the dry brush. And so you get an extra gradient of shading as well as the deepest recesses are going to be black.
I think it looks awesome, but it adds an extra step.
It does add an extra step. And the whole point of contrast is it cuts down 2 steps.
So I did my British versus Pirates, and I really liked how they looked with just white primer. I'm using GW primer also, which is more expensive, but one of our friends, Gordon, who runs Adler Hobbies, suggested to us, and he's right. The wrong kind of primer, contrast paints don't flow as well.
No, they don't. And they'll pick out every little grain of a grainy
primer more than ever matters now if you're going to use contrast paints.
Yeah.
So using a really, really high quality fine primer like Games Workshop works great. So I did that with British versus Pirates. I liked it. I was curious how it would work on people.
Yeah.
So I did it again with Joan of Arc. I primed all these dudes I was painting up for the big game, the GW primer white. They were already on the bases of 3. I didn't even bother keeping them separate. I just started hitting them with contrast. I was really pleased with how they came out. Now, if you look at them really close, there are those little white spots here and there. If you're really looking at them, you're going to be like, crap. But from a table quality point of view, from a foot away.
Oh, they look great.
And what I really like is the colors really do pop. You get nice pastels. I got a unit of Foot Knights wearing like pink tabards.
They're brave.
You really can't pull that off unless you do a white undercoat. And normally a white undercoat is a lot of work to paint on top of. And so contrast really rewards that. there's definitely a style you get with contrast.
You
it's
do,
definitely sort of a pastel, almost like chalk artwork kind of thing that I'm digging, but I could see that some armies and for some games I wouldn't want it. So you got to kind of want where you're going with that.
Right.
But for Joan of Arc and British versus Pirates, so maybe it's the smaller scale stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just really liking it.
Yeah. Well, so speaking of the smaller scale stuff, the other thing that I've been playing a lot of that I really haven't commented on in the pips has been 40K. So
you've been playing a lot of 40K.
I played.
As is our game group. It's pretty hot right now.
Well, 40K. They in Midgard Game and Comics and Games in Londonderry, which is another place that we play a lot, has been doing leagues, and their leagues have been very successful, and they're focusing on grow leagues and something new that I'd never even heard of before, and I forget the name. It's like a target league or something like that.
Ooh.
Because you're or
is it affordable
league. It's like a feet
shopping
league. No, it's like shut up.
It took a minute, but he got there.
It did.
It's like Target League.
Oh yeah, I get it. Thanks.
No problem.
No, that league is all about like you've got feats that you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
So don't do it. I just look the look on your face. You've got puns lined up.
I was sipping my soda though, so I couldn't get it out.
Yeah.
I did that to suppress it.
I appreciate that.
No
I appreciate that.
Right.
So I'm not in that one because with the play, there's no way I could do it. But I did the Grow League, and the Grow League was great because it started at 1,000 points, and I had collected the models for a Gene Stealer cult army, but I hadn't had the time or the inclination to put them together and paint them. So I put a whole bunch of them together, and then I started painting them. And that was actually right at the exact same time that contrast paints came out. And I was like, you know what? I want to do an entire army in contrast paints and see how it works.
You bought every contrast paint known to man.
So I did spend an ungodly amount of money on contrast paints. So I have all kinds of different choices.
Yeah, you did.
And I have painted so far, it's about 150 models. It's a Gene Stealer cult all infantry army.
Now, are these again prime black, dry brush?
Nope. No. I wish they were, because that's what convinced me I needed to do this.
Okay.
Is I primed them. It took me 3 cans of this primer.
Wow, that's not cheap.
$60 right there.
You've spent more on the paint than the models in this army.
I kind of might have at one point. And so I have like I said, 150 models painted. I have like 60 models left to paint if I want to paint everything I own, which would then bring the army to 2,500 points. So I don't really need them. But most of turns out I really enjoyed the troops and the way the troops played. So I have all of these renegade miners. I have all of these renegade guardsmen that I painted up to look like escaped prisoners who had put on their guards armor. Longtime listeners will remember my Lost in the Damned army, which was all basically a prison planet had been liberated by chaos, and so that entire army was fallen guard that was all dressed like orange jumpsuits underneath their black, shiny black prison guard armor, and that's kind of what I went for with the guardsmen. And then the initiate hybrids, the 2 and 3 the 3 and 4 armed Gene Stealer cult hybrids that are used like these giant industrial drilling equipment as hand-to-hand weapons. And I love the way they came out. The yellow is like grungy but detailed and goes into every recess, so it looks like cool industrial equipment. I did all of their armor pieces in yellow. I did their jumpsuits in like a white, so it's a dingy gray white. I really enjoyed it, but there's all these little white holidays that glow because the paint doesn't flow quite the way you'd think it would. So that's what convinced me I needed to go back to the black with the dry brush. I don't think I would do that with a 200 model army.
Seems like a lot.
That would be a lot. I don't know how long that 150 models would have taken me had I been using any other color paint, any other type of paint. But I'm really excited the way they worked, and I think the key is that I've used enough different colors on each model that it breaks up those pastel-y kind of feels for it. So you've got the black armor and or the brown belts and things like that are actually breaking up the larger color sections. So I really enjoyed the way that it came out. I ultimately ended up with a 2,000 point army painted, so I'm excited about that. And although I didn't finish by far all the models that I own, But playing 40K, it struck me again how much fun I have usually in the game, and that's always dependent upon who you're playing and kind of the environment you're playing in. But
like most games,
almost all, I would say all games are like that. But the games last forever. Even the short games, even 1,000-point game lasts for hours. Now, you don't notice it. And when we've said this before, I'm just reiterating what we've already said. You don't notice it when you're playing, but when you're done, you're like, oh my God, that was a 3-hour game. We could have played Song of Ice and Fire 3 times in the amount of time it took that. Or Joan of Arc switching sides and played both sides of a mission, including setup, which takes forever with Joan of Arc. So I just don't know. Like, I don't know. It's when I'm like, and Russ hasn't played 40K in forever. So,
but game length, it's for me, it's game length.
Exactly. So whenever I'm playing anything else, whenever I'm playing 40K, it's probably because Russ isn't around, and he was busy a lot over the summer and coming and going. But when he's around, we're playing these other games, and it always strikes me how many. We're either going to have a great dinner where we go out and we have some really nice food and we can sit and we can chat leisurely and have a really nice game and record the show. Right. So that's what my evening is like when Russ is around and we're playing multiple games and we're going to dinner. When it's not and it's 40K, it's like you're going to rush dinner and then you're going to like grind through. Well, it's not grinding. It's a lot of fun, but it takes forever.
It does.
And
it's not really it's much more of a weekend long game. You know what I mean? It's not really an evening
at that. No, you can get a game, but it's your whole evening.
But
you can easily get a game in an evening, but it's going to be your whole evening.
Right.
I mean, I can't tell you how many of these games, especially once the league got into larger point sizes, you're starting at like 4 or 5 in the afternoon and early evening, and you're playing till the store closes at 10. So, I mean, it's not, and again, I've heard people say, that's not true. We get through it. I do tournaments, and in a tournament, it's like 2,000-point armies, and we play 3 games in a day, and that's great for you. I don't know how you manage it. In my experience and in the local experience that I'm observing, these games take forever. And so
is that going to kick you out of the game?
I don't think it's going to kick me out of the game, but I think I'm not going, unless you end up like disappearing for months at a time. I don't think I'm going to do another league, which is sad because I mean that freaking Gene Stealer cult army cost me a fortune and then took all summer to paint.
Paint alone,
but in paint alone,
but it cost me a fortune. The paint's still there for you.
That's true.
So the paint is there for your Joan of Arc stuff or whatever.
Indeed. Although I will tell you this, I've noticed that you go through contrast paints a lot faster than you go through normal paints.
You do put it on.
I've already had to
slap it on there.
Yeah, I've already had to buy 2 new pots.
Brilliant.
Of colors.
It's brilliant because it works. It makes it easy for novice painters to paint nice table quality stuff. You use a lot of it the right way.
But
also it solves some of the hardest colors to paint.
You do.
Like shaded black. Shaded white. Shaded yellow.
Oh, the yellows
are
great.
Hard ones to pop and get right. The black contrast paint over white.
Great.
I painted up the executioners in Joan of Arc. Oh my God, they look awesome. They look fantastic. It was like, blop, done. I was like, oh my God. So anyway, sorry.
No,
I'm sorry to hear 40K's taking so long.
Well,
but you got an awesome army.
It's the game. I do have an awesome
What
army.
about some of these skirmish games? Can't you use Gene Stealer? I mean, you don't need a million of them, but can't Gene Stealer be used for those?
Well, that's how the Gene Stealer cult army started. I got the Kill Team box that came with them. And I was like, these guys are cool. I remember back when I was in college and I put together a Gene Stealer cult army back when they were just part of the Tyranid army. And so that was basically my summer.
40K?
40K.
So I've got a little bit of video games.
Oh, yes.
So finally, over most of the summer, I was playing through, as I mentioned in a different episode, Assassin's Creed plus all the downloadable content. So I finished finally Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which is the one taking place during Greece. Plus all the DLC. Probably the most number of hours I've had in any single one game in my adult life, but it was awesome. Very good. But now I've moved on to a couple other games that my daughters and I are playing together. One is a AAA title. The new Gears of War 5 is out. Gears of War is known for its campaign co-op, so you can play multiple players at once. So my daughters and I are playing that through together whenever we're around. Of course, they're all teenagers now. They've got jobs. I've got jobs. They've got school, college applications. So we're just getting in an hour in here and an hour in there, but it's only like a 10-hour campaign, so we'll get through it. But that's a lot of fun.
Cool.
The gem though, Craig.
Yes. What is the gem
we've
Russ?
discovered? And it's a really interesting gem because it's by a smaller studio called Spider Studio, and it's a game called Greedfall. And what's really interesting about this game is it's a classic Western RPG.
Okay.
Meaning,
what do you mean by like Wild West?
No, meaning like not Japanese style.
Okay.
So there's two kinds of really RPGs in the computer world. There's the classic Western, we call it, which basically means it was made in the West, not cowboy days.
Yeah.
Which basically means you either control one character or a party, but the combat's generally either real time or turn-based but realistic. Whereas the Japanese style, it's got this sort of hyper, sort of like the game goes to a different mode for combat, and it's sort of, anyway, it's very different.
Yeah.
So basically, Western RPGs are D&D style.
Okay.
Like if you, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So what's interesting about this one though is, and it's very much in the pattern of BioWare or so Dragon Age Origins.
Okay.
Well, and that's important because if you like commanding a party, this has got that. But what's interesting about games, the classic BioWare games, is that all the members of your party, you make your character unique and different, but the rest of the members of the party are pre-made characters with their own story arcs, feelings, emotions, and agendas.
Okay.
And as the game progresses, you find these people and they join your party. But if you do certain things, you can upset them or become closer to them.
Okay.
And if you become closer to them, it unlocks other abilities for them to do. This game has all that.
Oh, cool.
Which is really cool because BioWare stopped making really RPGs a while ago. All the major really great companies that made these classic RPGs have all decided that MMOs are the way to go. And so you don't have as many of these as you used to. So Greedfall is kind of like a merger of maybe like a little bit of Skyrim, a little bit of like Dragon Age, a little bit of The Witcher, all put together in one. And the real unique part of it is the fact that it takes place in sort of a, it's a mystical, magical, non-real world, but it's like Renaissance era. So everybody's wearing like, or I guess Victorian. Everybody's wearing what is it? Tricorn hats. What is that era?
That would be like Victorian.
Victorianish. Okay, so everybody's wearing like tricorn hats. You got your muskets.
Yeah.
You do also have magic, but there's also like a science stat. But what's really cool about it is there's these other stats like charisma and like it's intuition. I think it's like perception. And by taking these different skills, a lot of non-combat stuff starts to kick in. So if you're in dialogue with characters, you get additional dialogue choices.
Okay.
If you have better charisma stat,
cool, yeah.
that won't be there if you don't have that.
Yeah.
Or if you're walking by a mountainside and your intuition's really high, you might notice a crack that you can sneak through.
Cool.
If you intuition, or if you get to a spot where there's a big gap, unless your dexterity is high enough, you can't jump across it.
Yeah.
So like all these different, and the thing about the game that's really interesting is you don't get enough skill points per level to have everything. So you really got to choose, like, if you want to be able to lockpick, that's great because you can get into the building by picking locks.
Yeah.
Or if you get your stealth really high, you can get into the building by sneaking by people. Or if your science is really high, you might be able to get in the building by blowing a hole in the door in the wall with like some potions. Yeah. So there's all these cool options, but they're all very different, which is really interesting. So I like all that. But the other thing that's pretty intuitive or innovative about it is you can get skill points by the gear you wear. So for example, if you have a really nice cloak, +1 charisma. Or
very nice.
If you have thieves' tools that actually show up as an attachment to your belt, you get +1 lockpicking. Or if you have boots that are particularly good at jumping or whatever, they give you +1 vigor. So you're actually, your stats are spent by leveling, but also the right equipment can gear you for the right kinds of gameplay, which is really, really neat. Other little innovative things, when you have long traveling, what ends up happening, most games have loading screens. This game takes you to like a traveling camp where you're on your journey, you've reached this merchant. So you can actually, while you're at the merchant, your crafting table is there, the merchant's there. So you can craft and buy and sell things to the merchant while the game's loading the next level, which is great. So there's not really any downtime, which is pretty smart. So all of it's I think it's wonderful. The story's great. The art style's phenomenal. The only downside to it is because it's a smaller studio, there are a few little bugs here and there.
Okay.
So some nuances. So it keeps it from being a full-on feeling like a AAA title. But I really like it. And if you're like me and you like BioWare and classic Western RPGs with a neat little twist, definitely check out Greedfall. It's we're really enjoying it. My daughters love it. They were big fans of Skyrim, and they keep comparing it to Skyrim because Skyrim had its share of bugs too in the early days, but they just love the open worldness of it and everything, and so they're thinking this is really great. So
now, can you all play together? Are you all playing together?
No, it's not. It's purely a single player experience. But what we do when we have games like this is we'll What's nice about this is when we're together, we play Gears of War. When we're apart, they'll play it for a few hours, and I'll play it, and then we compare notes.
Gives you something to
we talk about it. But what's cool is you can choose different paths to success. So it's like, what did you do here? Did you end up, like there's this one level very early in the game, there's these two heretics running around town. Now, you're with a faction where it's not illegal to be a heretic.
Okay.
But there's these two allied factions in town. One of them is the religious faction who wants you to go after these. For the sake of our alliance, please take care of these heretics. But meanwhile, you're the son of the guy who's like trying to keep the peace. Meanwhile, there's this other faction heavy on science. So what I did was I found them, instead of killing them or turning them over to the religious cult, I gave them to the science faction and took them in there and said, quick, plead for sanctuary. And so they did. And then I went back to the religious faction. Sorry, they pleaded for sanctuary before I could do anything. Meanwhile, my other daughter was like, nope, I just turned him in. I'm like, wow. Said, yeah. So now because I lost a little bit of faith because the religious guys believe me, but they're like, wow, you're a little bit incompetent.
Yeah, right.
Whereas the science guys love me now. So she's got the other thing. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. And that's the fun part. You can really see if these games where the world changes based on what you do change that much.
Right.
So that's kind of fun.
That's cool.
So enjoying that one. So that's that. What about shows, Craig? What have you been watching lately?
Oh, what have I been watching lately? That's a good question. The Spy on Netflix was crazy good with Sacha Baron Cohen.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
It's a true story, or based on a true story. As far as I've dug, and I've only dug a little bit, but it's a true story about an Israeli spy in Syria in the early 60s, before the 6 Day War. How long did that one last for? That was about 6 days, I think. Could be wrong. I mean, the 100 Years War, that's confusing.
Actually, it's confusing.
Yeah, it is confusing.
Talk about
the 10 Years War. The 10 Years War. But anyway,
right.
So that was. I mean, Sacha Baron Cohen. If you haven't seen him in anything serious, you should check. I can't even remember what other thing that he's done is serious, because in this he was phenomenal. So that was a great story. We watched that. I'm watching Silicon Valley.
That is a great show.
I'm really enjoying that.
I'm behind on that. I got to jump back.
Yeah, I think we just started season 4 out of 5 with a new one coming. And one of the main actors, I believe, did some horrible bomb scare thing on a train between New York City and Connecticut or something.
Oh, wow.
And got arrested for it and ended up having to leave the show. So I'm curious to see how he leaves the show. That'll be interesting.
Wow.
Because it's always fun to be watching it. Well, not fun, but interesting to be watching a show, this late in its lifetime, knowing some real life thing impacted the show, and then watching it and you'll be like, this must have been the moment where he got arrested and had to leave. What else am I? I enjoyed Carnival Row, which you're having mixed feelings about.
I'm trying to get my family to enjoy it. I thought the first episode was okay.
Yeah, I would say it keeps getting better and better.
My daughters are funny. They're like, Dad, this is super derivative. I'm like, well, yeah, I guess. Because all the fairy tropes, like everything's so expected. But still, it's sort of like, it's still an interesting, nuanced sort of world. So I'm like, yeah, and so the first episode was kind of, and they're like, well, I don't know. And I'm like, well, I'll watch it again. So my youngest will watch it with me, but my wife and my oldest daughter are like,
I'm already checked out.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, the problem is there's so many shows to watch.
Yeah.
That I think shows have to really grab you in episode 1 or 2. Or you're like,
well, to me, this one grabbed me in episode 1 and just gets better in episode 2. By episode 5, I was jaw on the ground. And then in the end, the spoiler alert, they're setting you up for another season.
Oh, that's not
so
really they all do that?
You're kind of hoping like, oh, this is gonna be awesome. It's gonna go all the way to the end, and it's gonna be this great, and everything kind of resolves, and then like lengthens a little bit to give you a little more backstory, so that the next season makes more sense.
Right.
So it doesn't end on a super powerful note. You get that in the second of the last episode, basically. So I felt like that the only letdown I felt was like in the end was a little less of an oomph than I would have liked, but I loved it. I thought it was great. I'm trying to think, what else have I been watching? I haven't really been watching a lot. I've been, relinquishing the remote control season. And play season makes a big giant hit on the whole thing. And we've been trying to watch stuff that we enjoy together. Survivor's back on.
I don't watch that. Yeah, and movies have been really dry lately. Right?
Movies have been, well, they're always super dry.
Yeah,
in the fall,
it's not the right
though.
time of year.
It's not.
No, we're watching Lucifer, which
Love it.
you turned me on to.
Love it.
Loving that. We're watching the girls, when Nicole travels, the girls and I watch, I've been rewatching, they haven't seen it, but I have, Community.
Oh, yeah.
We just had the paintball
Always
episode,
fun,
which
yeah.
is a classic.
Yeah.
That's a great show. And you know what? I knew this, but it's so fun to watch such an amazing cast who've all gone on to amazing things.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Community's been fun.
Yeah.
We also have one new guilty pleasure, Craig.
What's that?
So we saw this on Hulu. So we're going into Hulu to watch Community, and there's this ad with these crazy costume creatures.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, crazy, this must be some stupid
Is this
kid
Masked
show.
Singer?
And so we're like, well, what is watch?
Don't tell me you're watching Masked
We are
Singer.
loving the frigging Masked Singer.
Oh, my God,
But the best
Russ.
part is the host doesn't say singer, he says singer.
Singer.
So we've all been saying Masked
Russ.
Singer. I'm telling you,
Masked
I can't explain it
Singer.
to you. It is addictive, Craig.
Masked Singer,
I have
Russ.
no redeeming things to
What
say
the
except
hell?
it is freaking addictive.
Wow, you have
I don't know what
shocked
to tell
me.
you. I don't
You
know what to
have
tell you.
shocked me.
My whole family loves it. And the funny part is, my girls and I, when we watched it, it was a trailer for the new season. Right?
Yeah.
So, and it was in the trailer for the new season, flashbacks to season 1.
Yeah.
And we're like, this looks so stupid. We're just going to watch just to see how stupid this is. And we're like, man, is this dumb? Man, is this dumb? And the preview for season 2 was like 20 minutes long. And we're like, man, is this dumb? And then we got to the end of it, we're like, I kind of want to watch the first episode of season 1. We're like, even though they just revealed like all of season 1, we're like, yeah, I kind of do too. So we're watching it, and we're like, this is kind of good. So then Nicole got home. We're like, want to watch it with Mom? And Nicole's like, okay, this is stupid. And we're like, I know, but just keep watching. And by the end of the episode, Nicole's like, can we watch the next one? It's like, I can't explain to you why this show was good.
Mind control.
Yes,
I can.
well,
mind control.
I think it's a combination of
Mind control.
everybody in the show knows they're being crazy over the top.
Yeah.
So they just, it's known. Secondly, they do have a lot of the stars of Community on as cameos. So the one guy who played the Spanish teacher in Community is on all the time. He's one of the judges.
Yeah.
But then every once in a while, they'll have other members on the show, also former Community folks. So they're just hilarious. But the other thing about it that works is the people who do the costumes are amazing. Like they are the costumes are really, really fun to look at. And what's really amazing is the performances people can pull off in the costumes. And it is interesting to try to look at someone and go like, that's someone who's been on Broadway, the way they're moving. Like it's fun to just kind of try to figure that out. I think if you watched, I double dog dare you, even if you know I double dog dare you to watch one episode of season 1 and not then go watch episode 2. Because I think with your ability for acting and all that stuff, you're going to get into it.
Yeah. Oh.
It is
Well,
really
here's my
interesting.
conundrum.
Yeah.
Like if I do, I'm never going to admit it to you.
No, of course not. But that's okay. That's okay. I don't care. I'll just ask Karen. It'll be fine.
Exactly.
But I think Karen would love it because she loves stars. She likes all that stuff.
She does.
I think this could be a great show for the two of you to watch.
Yeah.
You'd enjoy sort of seeing the performances. It's fun to watch too because like someone will sing and they'll be god awful. They'll be bad.
Yeah.
Because you know they're a singer. Every once in a while, one of the panelists will be going, I think they're a trained singer. And then one of them is just sitting there goes, really? I'm not so sure. And the rest of the people are just like, oh, God. Because you can tell.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. And then you'll get someone out there like who just like nails it. And you're like, oh, my God, I think that was Gladys Knight. Like legitimately, like, I think that's Gladys Knight under that mask. Like it's really, really good.
Yeah.
So I know it shouldn't be.
No.
I'm not defending it.
Yeah.
I am not claiming. I am sorry. I am sorry I've done this to all of you because if you watch this show,
to the world.
It is my fault.
Apologize to the internet, Russ.
It is my fault. My favorite part about season 1 is, and the preview for season 2 is how they're raving about how this took the world by storm. But you can tell. And they have these little scenes with kids, and it's like one family in like Indiana, and it's like, it brought our entire family unit back together. And it shows like 4 kids watching the show. And you can tell, like, it's like they know. It's like they're making fun of themselves.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's awesome. I don't know how there you go. We just have to end it here because you can't get any better than that.
You can't. No.
So there you have it. The Masked Singer. If you take nothing else away from this episode, watch The Masked Singer.
Then you have truly separated.
Sure. You can spend thousands of dollars on models and paint like Craig did, or You can just go to Hulu for free.
It wasn't thousands.
Watch The Masked Singer.
Right. Thank you for that.
No
yeah.
problem. No problem.
Okay. Well done, Russ. Well done. Way to end on a high note.
There you have it.
Achievement unlocked! You've made it to the end of another D6 Generation episode, the podcast whose humor has universally been acclaimed as not too horrible. Please let us know what you thought of the show by emailing us at info@the d6generation.com. If for some inexplicable reason you actually enjoyed this show, you can help others find out about it by leaving positive reviews on iTunes. Thanks for listening and happy gaming.